May your day be filled with light, and may the week ahead bring you profound peace, clarity, and a truly divine blessing in everything you set your hands to. We are so glad you were joining us for this deep dive today.
Absolutely. It is so good to be here.
So to start us off, I want you to imagine, just for a moment, the absolute lowest person in your society.
Oh, wow.
Right, like the person who was quite literally sweeping the filth off the floors at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Now, take that exact person and imagine handing them the keys to a global empire.
It's a completely jarring image.
It really is. It's totally counterintuitive.
Yep.
But that image is exactly what we are exploring today. We are looking at a radical masterclass in authentic leadership, influence, and really the massive collision between human ego and true purpose.
And the historical texts we're using to ground this exploration are just incredibly rich.
They really are. We're looking closely at the first letter to the Corinthians, specifically chapter 4.
Right, and we're relying on the structural insights of the Holman and NAA study Bibles for that.
Yes. And we are also bringing in a brilliant essay by Michael J. Wilkins.
Which is so good, by the way. It examines the actual day-to-day lifestyle of the original apostles.
Right. And what surfaces from all these sources is a complete subversion of how the ancient world and, honestly, how our modern world views power and status.
Oh, entirely. I mean, the people tasked with changing the course of history were entirely willing to be considered the absolute scum of the earth.
Which is just wild to think about. But before we get into the heavy drama unfolding in the ancient city of Corinth, we really need to establish the actual job description of the men writing these letters.
That is crucial context, yeah.
Because the word apostle gets thrown around in historical and religious texts constantly, right?
All the time.
And it often conjures up images of, men with glowing halos and stained glass windows.
Right, completely untouchable, holy figures.
Exactly. But Wilkins draws a very sharp practical distinction between a disciple and an apostle.
He does, and that distinction really changes how you read the entire text.
How so?
Well, in the ancient world, a disciple was fundamentally a learner.
Yeah.
If you were a disciple of a philosopher, your job was to follow them around, absorb their teachings, and just basically mimic their lifestyle.
So you were a student.
Exactly, you were a student. But the word apostle stems from a Greek verb that means to send someone out to achieve a specific objective.
Oh, I see.
It is not just a student, it is a commissioned representative authorized to deliver a very particular message.
So an apostle is an emissary with a mandate.
Exactly the function. Though the New Testament does use the term in 4 distinct tiers, which Wilkins breaks down really well.
Right. Let's go through those.
So first you have the original 12.
The direct eyewitnesses to Jesus' earthly ministry.
Yes. Second, it refers to those who saw the resurrected Lord and were uniquely commissioned for ministry.
Like Paul.
Like Paul, exactly. Third, it is used in a broader sense for missionaries.
Like Barnabas, right. People who traveled and planted new communities.
You got it. And finally, it refers to general messengers of the church's people dispatched to carry out administrative, logistical, or charitable tasks.
Okay, so a fairly wide range of jobs, actually.
Yeah, but the unifying thread, especially for those in the first 2 categories, is that their authority did not originate from their own charisma, wealth, or political connections.
Which is how most leaders get their authority.
Right. No, theirs came entirely from a transformative encounter that fundamentally shattered their previous understanding of reality.
Wow. And when you look at the raw material of that first category, the original 12, the sheer mind-boggling diversity of that group really stands out.
Oh, it's wild.
I was looking through the historical notes on these men, and the contrast is extreme.
It really is.
I mean, you have Matthew, who was a tax collector. And for anyone unfamiliar with the ancient tax system, this wasn't an accountant sitting in a cubicle.
No, not at all.
Matthew was working for the occupying Roman government. He was actively extracting money from his own neighbors to fund the military force oppressing them.
He was literally viewed as a traitor to his people.
A total traitor. And then in the very same inner circle, you have Simon the Zealot.
Right, the total opposite end of the spectrum.
The Zealots were violent revolutionaries, completely dedicated to overthrowing the Roman Empire by any means necessary, including political assassination.
So under normal sociological conditions, a zealot and a Roman tax collector would have ended each other's lives in an alleyway.
Without a second thought.
They represented diametrically opposed visions for the future of their country.
Just put that into a modern context for a second.
It's hard to even imagine.
Imagine trying to run a tech startup or putting together a political cabinet where your 2 top executives are a ruthless, Wall Street billionaire who profits off foreclosures, and a radical anti-capitalist anarchist.
Right. On paper, they should absolutely destroy each other.
Exactly, and take the entire organization down in flames while doing it. How on earth did they function together?
We really have to look at the psychological mechanism of identity replacement here.
Identity replacement.
Yeah. This incredible unity wasn't the result of, like, compromise.
Right.
It wasn't born from sitting in a circle and doing corporate trust falls to find common ground.
Right.
It emerged because their previous tribal identities were completely overwritten by a shared life-altering mission.
Wow. Overwritten. I like that.
When people experience an encounter that radically redefines their understanding of the universe, their old political and social squabbles suddenly look incredibly small.
That makes so much sense.
True leadership, as demonstrated by this group, isn't about assembling an echo chamber of people who already share your demographic or your politics.
Right. It's not just finding people who agree with you.
No, it is about taking wildly different individuals with conflicting backgrounds and hostile ideals and uniting them under a single purpose so powerful that it makes their previous animosities irrelevant.
So yeah, this world-changing mission, they are handpicked for the job. And because of that, I think it is incredibly easy for a modern reader to assume they lived like royalty.
Oh, for sure.
Because they were the founders of a global movement.
Right. You'd expect palaces and wealth.
Exactly. And the ancient Corinthians, the people actually receiving this letter from Paul, certainly believed they were entitled to a royal lifestyle.
Oh, they definitely did.
Corinth was a wealthy, status-obsessed city, which created a massive clash of egos.
Yeah, Corinth was essentially a booming port city. It was highly competitive, very focused on upward mobility, commerce, and, social prestige.
Basically, the big city life.
If we look at it through a modern lens, it was a mix of Silicon Valley's tech bro ambition and Wall Street's financial ruthlessness.
Wow. Okay. That paints a picture.
Right. So when people in that city embraced a new spiritual belief system, they naturally imported all their old cultural values right into their new community.
You just brought the baggage with them.
Exactly. They started forming factions, bragging about which prominent leader they followed, and using their spiritual knowledge to elevate their social status.
They were acting like ancient influencers trying to buy a blue verification checkmark in the Roman Forum.
That is the perfect way to describe it. And in the first 8 verses of chapter 4, Paul confronts this head on.
And he confronts it by totally deflating his own status first, doesn't he?
He does.
He refuses to play their game at all. He calls himself a mere servant and a steward of God's mysteries.
The choice of the word steward is deeply intentional there.
Tell me more about that.
So a steward or a manager is someone who oversees an estate, a household, or property that entirely belongs to someone else.
Oh, so they don't actually own anything themselves.
The steward owns nothing. Their only requirement, their only metric for success, is to be found faithful by the actual master of the house.
That shifts the perspective entirely.
It really does. Paul is telling the Corinthians, you are trying to turn me into celebrity CEO, you are trying to build fan clubs around me, but I am just the hired help managing the estate.
Wow.
He goes so far as to say he doesn't even care about human judgment, including his own internal judgment of himself.
Right, because his opinion of himself doesn't matter.
Exactly. Only God's judgment matters, because God alone possesses the capability to reveal the hidden motives of the heart.
Then Paul shifts his tone. In verse 8, he brings out this heavy, biting irony.
Oh, he really lays it on thick.
He looks at these arrogant Corinthians and says, "You are already full. You are already rich. You have begun to reign as kings without us."
Yeah.
The sarcasm is just dripping off the page.
It is a brilliant rhetorical device. The Corinthians were acting as though they had already achieved ultimate spiritual and social triumph.
They wanted the reward without the work.
Exactly. They wanted the glory, the status, and the crown of the finish line without having to endure the suffering of running the race.
Let me push back on Paul's tactic here, though.
Sure.
If we look at modern leadership philosophy, a good leader is supposed to empower their followers.
Right.
We are constantly told to build people up to make them feel successful, capable, and victorious. Why is Paul taking the wind out of their sails so aggressively? Why crush their confidence like that?
Because he is targeting unearned arrogance, which is the complete opposite of genuine empowerment. He asks them an incredibly piercing question. What do you have that you did not receive?
Wow. What do you have that you did not receive?
Yeah. He is challenging the mechanics of their pride. If every single thing you possess, your natural talents, your wealth, your cognitive abilities, your spiritual insights, was handed to you as a gift, how can you possibly boast as if you manufactured it all on your own?
That translates so perfectly to the modern world.
Doesn't it?
Think about someone who takes a breathtaking photograph taken by a professional, runs it through an AI filter, posts it on their social media, and then aggressively defends their status as a master artist.
Right.
It's the toxic ego of someone claiming to be a self-made entrepreneur when their entire business was funded by a massive family trust fund.
The Corinthians were suffering from that exact amnesia. They were completely forgetting the source of their gifts.
Which is so dangerous.
It is. The psychological danger here is that when you forget that your abilities are received gifts, gratitude dies and entitlement is born.
And entitlement destroys everything.
It really does. Paul is trying to wake them up from this delusion of self-made royalty because entitlement will eventually destroy their community from the inside out.
So, to completely shatter that illusion of glamorous, comfortable leadership, Paul paints a brutal, visceral picture of what his own life actually looks like.
Yeah, he gets very graphic.
He completely flips the script on what it means to be successful.
The imagery he deploys in verses 9 through 13 would have been absolutely shocking to a first-century audience.
Shocking how?
Well, he uses the metaphor of a Roman triumphal procession.
Bring that visual to life for the listener. What exactly would the Corinthians have pictured when he said that?
Okay, so when a Roman general won a massive military victory, the Senate would award him a triumph, a massive parade through the city streets.
Like a ticker tape parade, but Roman style.
Exactly. At the very front were the victorious soldiers, the musicians, the exotic animals, and the spoils of war. It was a sensory overload of glory and power.
Right.
But at the very end of the line, chained together at the absolute rear of the procession, were the condemned prisoners of war.
Oh, wow.
These were the defeated enemies destined to be dragged into the gladiator arena to be torn apart by wild animals or executed as a public spectacle for the crowd's entertainment.
That is brutal.
And Paul says, God has put us apostles on display at the very end of the line like men condemned to die in the arena.
If you are listening to this right now on your commute, heading into an office where you have to constantly fight for a promotion, aggressively network, and prove your worth just to survive, Paul's reality is going to sound completely insane.
Completely backward.
The Corinthians are sitting there claiming to be wise, strong, and honored. They are fighting for a spot at the front of the parade.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Paul says the actual leaders, the apostles, are weak, hungry, poorly clothed, beaten, homeless, and exhausting themselves with manual labor.
And remember the cultural context there. Greco-Roman society despised manual labor.
They look down on it.
Heavily. It was considered the domain of slaves and the lower classes. Elite philosophers did not work with their hands.
Right.
So for Paul to openly admit that he exhausts himself with manual labor is a deliberate, calculated rejection of their entire value system.
It makes me think about today's heavily curated influencer culture.
Oh, absolutely.
Influence today relies on projecting a flawless aesthetic. It is about displaying the luxury cars, the passive income streams, the effortless, stress-free success.
You can't let them see you sweat.
Exactly. The unwritten rule is that if you look like you are struggling, you lose credibility. But Paul offers this gritty, blue-collar, sweat-stained reality.
And he pushes the language to its absolute limit here.
What do you mean?
In the original Greek, Paul uses two very specific, jarring terms, perikatharma and parapsoma.
Okay, what do those mean?
These words literally translate to the filth that is scrubbed off something or the scrapings swept from the floor. He is telling them, to the world, we are the dirt you wipe off the bottom of your sandals.
That sounds incredibly defeating. I mean, if you were trying to build a movement, how is becoming the dirt on a sandal a successful model of leadership?
To understand how that actually works, we have to look at the mechanics of non-retaliation.
Okay.
Paul writes, when we are cursed, we bless. When we are persecuted, we endure it. When we are slandered, we answer kindly.
Which is so hard to do.
It is. In Paul's upside-down worldview, this extreme humility isn't weakness. It is an impenetrable, radical strength.
How so?
Think about human nature. Anyone can hurl insults back when they are attacked. It requires zero character to scream at someone who is screaming at you.
That's very true.
But to absorb the hatred, the violence, and the contempt of the world and process it internally so that you return it with a blessing, that requires a source of power completely outside of oneself.
It really does.
It disarms the oppressor because they have no framework for how to handle someone who won't fight back on their terms.
So they are stripping away every single worldly advantage. Wealth, status, eloquent speech, even basic human respect. So that the only thing left standing is the raw truth of their message.
Exactly.
If they were rich and powerful kings, people might follow them just to get a piece of the wealth or to gain political favor.
Which happens all the time.
Right. But by being the scum of the earth, they filter out anyone looking for a shortcut. They guarantee that anyone who joins them is there for the truth, not for the perks.
And that leads to a critical question. If Paul essentially calls them arrogant, fake kings and presents himself as a condemned prisoner and the sweepings of the floor, how does this relationship survive?
Right. Why wouldn't the Corinthians just tear up the letter and find a new leader who makes them feel good about themselves?
Yeah.
Well, the text pivots completely right after this harsh reality check, and it provides the answer.
It does.
The tone goes from sharp, biting sarcasm to the sound of a deeply loving, almost weeping parent.
Verses 14 through 21 represent a beautiful pastoral shift that provides the social scaffolding for the entire letter.
It really softens the blow.
He explicitly tells them that his goal isn't to shame them. He isn't trying to humiliate them for the sake of his own ego. He is writing these things to warn them as his beloved children.
He makes a fascinating comparison here, too. He tells them that while they may have 10,000 instructors in Christ, they do not have many fathers.
Yes.
What exactly was an instructor in the first century Roman world?
The Greek word Paul uses is pedagogos, which translates to a pedagogue.
Okay.
In wealthy ancient households, a pedagogue was usually a strict slave entrusted with the moral supervision and physical discipline of a child.
So they were like a very intense nanny.
Yeah, their job was strict behavioral compliance. They would literally walk the child to school carrying a stick, ensuring the child didn't step out of line, didn't talk to the wrong people, and followed all the rules.
Wow.
They were disciplinarians. A father, however, operates from a completely different paradigm. A father operates from a place of deep sacrificial love, shared identity, and long-term investment.
Bringing this into the digital age, this distinction is staggering.
Isn't it?
We have limitless access to modern pedagogues. You can find endless video tutorials on how to optimize your morning routine, thousands of life coaches offering to fix your mindset for a subscription fee, and online experts eager to violently correct your opinions in the comment sections.
We are drowning in instructors.
Exactly. But we are suffering from a massive drought of actual mentors. People who invest in us like family, who care about the architecture of our character more than our outward productivity.
Because instructors give you data. Mentors share their actual lives with you.
That is so true.
Instructors tell you what to do to avoid punishment. Fathers and mothers model how to navigate the world. That is why Paul's solution to the Corinthians' arrogance isn't to send them a longer list of rules.
He sends a human being.
He sends Timothy.
He explicitly states he is sending Timothy to remind them of his ways. Not his lecture notes, not his theological bullet points, but his actual way of moving through the world.
And that culminates in verse 20, which really anchors the entire argument. The kingdom of God does not consist in words, but in power.
When modern people hear the word power, we usually think of cinematic displays.
Like explosions and magic.
Right, or wealth, political leverage, or a leader with mind-bending charisma who can command an arena of thousands.
But based on Wilkins' analysis of the apostles' lifestyle, that was the exact opposite of the power Paul meant.
What kind of power was it then?
This power wasn't about flashy charisma. It was the undeniable, quiet, disruptive power of a radically transformed life.
A transformed life?
Yeah, it is the power to be treated like garbage and genuinely offer a blessing in return. It is the power to abandon a lucrative, comfortable career as a corrupt tax collector to serve the poor.
Which is so much harder than just giving a speech.
Exactly. Words are incredibly cheap, especially in a city of professional philosophers like Corinth, or our modern world completely saturated by social media hot takes.
Everyone has an opinion.
Anyone can curate a good image. But a life genuinely transformed from the inside out possesses a gravity that words alone can never achieve.
It is the difference between someone giving a highly polished stage presentation on the concept of resilience and someone who actually sits with you in a hospital waiting room in your darkest moment and pulls you through it because they have survived that exact darkness themselves.
That is beautifully said. And Paul leaves the Corinthians with a final open-ended choice based on this exact dynamic.
The choice about how he will arrive.
Yes. He asks them, When I come to you, should I come with a rod of discipline or with love and a gentle spirit?
He puts it back on them.
He places the responsibility for the next step entirely in their hands. He is ready to be the strict disciplinarian if they insist on clinging to their arrogant illusions. But his deepest desire is to arrive with the gentleness of a father rejoicing over his children's growth.
The humility he expects from them is the exact same humility he has already bled to model for them.
Exactly. He's just asking them to follow his lead.
He is asking them to take off the paper crowns they awarded themselves, step out of the hallucination of their own self-importance, and embrace the gritty, beautiful reality of true service.
It strips away all the hollow aesthetics of leadership and leaves us with the bare, heavy mechanics of endurance and love.
As we wrap up this exploration, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over as you navigate your week. We spend so much of our lives thinking about legacy. We naturally build monuments and name buildings after the kings of history, the people who amassed wealth, projected power, and demanded to be at the front of the parade.
The influencers of their time.
Right. But if you look closely at how history actually operates, the people who shift the moral arc of the universe, the people who actually change the course of human hearts, are often the ones history forgot to write down.
The ones at the back of the parade.
They were the sweepings on the floor. So ask yourself, what kind of hidden empire are you frantically building in your own life right now, whether your job, in your social circle, or online, that might actually just be a prison built by your own ego?
That is a tough question.
What would happen if you let that empire fall and simply decided to serve? Finding the courage to answer that could change everything. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. God blesses all the listeners.
God blesses all the listeners.